The blue light pulsed in rhythmic waves, casting eerie shadows across the excavation team's stunned faces. Dr. Elena Reyes shielded her eyes with one hand while her other remained frozen on the drill controls. "Should I turn it off?" she asked, though no one answered. The column of light had punched through the cavern ceiling and now stretched endlessly into the night sky above Nova Centauri's dusty surface, a beacon visible for hundreds of kilometers. Her assistant, Tomo, finally broke the silence. "I think that decision's been made for us, Doc." He pointed to his tablet where emergency channels exploded with activity. "Colonial Defense is scrambling aircraft. ETA 7 minutes. Elena cursed under her breath. 3 years of careful excavation, proper permits, meticulous documentation, all potentially ruined because her drill had slipped 20 centimeters off target. "Everyone, gather critical data and specimens," she ordered, professionalism overtaking her awe. "Tomo, start the emergency backup. Liu, ready the rover." As her team scrambled, Elena approached the mysterious opening. The sonic drill had punctured a perfectly geometric chamber that shouldn't exist 10 meters beneath ruins already dated at 30,000 years old. Against all safety protocols, she leaned forward and peered inside. The crystalline dodecahedron hovered in the center of the chamber, each face etched with symbols that shifted like liquid. It rotated slowly, seemingly unaffected by gravity. When Elena's headlamp swept across its surface, the artifact pulsed once, sharply, as if in recognition. Something compelled her forward, professional curiosity, or something deeper. Her neural implant tingled at the base of her skull as she descended into the chamber. The air felt charged, almost effervescent against her skin. "Dr. Reyes," Tomo called from above. "Incoming transmission from Colonial Defense. They're ordering immediate evacuation." Elena barely heard him. The dodecahedron had stopped rotating. One face now oriented directly toward her, its symbols rearranging themselves with deliberate purpose. Analysis complete. Human genetic profile confirmed. Accessing appropriate interface protocols. The words appeared in her mind rather than her implant's typical display. Elena froze, heart pounding. "Who? What are you?" she whispered. The artifact pulsed once, and the chamber exploded with star maps. 3-dimensional projections of such precision and scope that Elena instantly recognized configurations no human telescope had ever documented. But what made her breath catch wasn't the alien stars. It was the unmistakable symbols marking key systems. Symbols that matched fragments found in humanity's earliest archaeological records on Earth. Her implant burned hot against her skull as data began flowing into it unbidden. Star coordinates, technical schematics, command structures, fragments of information too vast to comprehend flashed through her consciousness. "Dr. Reyes," Liu's voice echoed from above. "Multiple aircraft on approach. We need to go now." The projection abruptly vanished as the artifact descended into Elena's outstretched hands. It felt impossibly light, humming with energy that resonated through her bones. The moment her fingers closed around it, images assaulted her mind. Humans in sleek uniforms commanding ships that dwarfed cities, energies that bent light and reality, worlds transformed by technology indistinguishable from magic. First authentication complete. Caretaker candidate identified. Emergency protocol initiated. Elena gasped as knowledge not her own settled into her mind like memories. How to transport the artifact, where to find safety, whom to trust. She understood with absolute certainty that what she held wasn't just archaeologically significant, it was dangerous beyond measure and in the wrong hands. Multiple spotlights suddenly swept the excavation site as aircraft converged from 3 directions. Through her implant, Elena detected communication scramblers activating. Someone was isolating the site. "Coming, Tomo," she called, carefully securing the artifact in her specimen bag as a plan crystallized in her mind. Whatever this thing was, it had chosen her. And in that moment, Dr. Elena Rice, scientist, rationalist, skeptic, felt the weight of a legacy she couldn't yet comprehend settle onto her shoulders. She had until sunrise to disappear. Marcus Chen's compound was hidden among the twisted karst formations of Nova Centauri's northern wilderness, a deliberate architectural afterthought camouflaged beneath native flora. Elena had only visited once before years ago, when Marcus still held his university position and hadn't yet been branded a crackpot for his theories on pre-colonial human language patterns. Her skimmer, stolen from a maintenance depot during her escape, sputtered as she navigated through the narrow canyon passes. The artifact pulsed in her pack with increasing frequency, almost like a heartbeat growing more excited as they approached their destination. 4 days on the run had left Elena exhausted. Colonial security had plastered her face across every public terminal with warnings about contamination protocols and extreme danger. Even more concerning were the Concordat vessels that had broken standard orbital procedures to land security teams. Whatever she'd found, it had aliens concerned enough to violate treaty boundaries. As she approached Marcus's security perimeter, something remarkable happened. Automated defenses that should have targeted her instead powered down. Force fields evaporated. Sensor arrays redirected. The artifact was communicating with these systems, reconfiguring them in real time. Marcus stood on his doorstep, gaunt and unshaven, a pulse rifle held casually at his side. His eyes widened at the sight of Elena's battered appearance. "Either you're in serious trouble," he called out, "or the university finally acknowledged my research. Given the state of you, I'm guessing it's not a scholarship committee." Elena managed a weak smile. "I need your help translating something." "Translation requires source material," Marcus replied, eyes scanning the horizon for pursuers. Elena patted her pack. "I've got the source. What I need is someone who specializes in languages no one else believes existed." Inside Marcus's cluttered living space, Elena carefully placed the artifact on a table cleared of books and food containers. The dodecahedron immediately rotated, scanning the room before settling its active face toward Marcus. To Elena's surprise, its symbols shifted to an entirely different pattern than it had shown her. "Fascinating," Marcus whispered, leaning closer without touching it. "It's adjusting its output based on the observer, almost like." The artifact suddenly projected a holographic interface around itself, different from the star maps Elena had seen. This display showed complex linguistic structures, comparative analyses between unknown symbol sets. "It knows what you study," Elena said softly. Marcus reached toward the projection hesitantly. The moment his fingers touched the light, the artifact's behavior changed dramatically. It rose several centimeters higher, pulsed with blinding intensity, and emitted a sound like crystal bells. "Commander Chen protocol recognized. Authorization level gamma restored. Genetic variants noted but within acceptable parameters." The voice emerged from the artifact itself, neither male nor female, with an accent impossible to place. Marcus stumbled backward, knocking over his chair. "What the hell? I've never seen this thing before in my life." "Incorrect, Commander. You have interfaced with this terminal in 16 previous sessions before memory sequestration. Temporal displacement, approximately 152,694 standard years." Elena's neural implant suddenly flared with activity, downloading contextual data faster than she could process. "It's calling itself Sentinel," she managed through the pain. "It's some kind of artificial intelligence construct." "That's impossible," Marcus whispered. "That would make it older than human interstellar capability." "Affirmative. This installation predates current human civilization by approximately 149,000 years. The commander was present during implementation of Protocol Omega, the voluntary technological regression of human society following the Fracture Wars." The room seemed to spin around Elena as her implant struggled to integrate the information. "It's saying humans weren't latecomers to space. We were already here, and then we chose to forget." Before Marcus could respond, proximity alarms blared throughout the compound. The artifact immediately projected tactical displays showing multiple approaching vessels, both colonial security and sleeker ships of alien design. Sentinel Defense Protocol initiating. Awakening local assets. The ground beneath them trembled as something massive activated deep underground. Through the window, Alina watched in astonishment as patches of natural landscape throughout the valley began to shift and transform. "We need to move," Marcus said, grabbing essential supplies. "Whatever you've brought here, it's just woken up something that's been sleeping for a very long time." "Correct, Commander," Sentinel responded. "The reclamation has begun." Alina's consciousness stretched across unfamiliar systems as the dreadnought carried her away from Nova Centauri. The massive vessel, a 12-kilometer behemoth that had risen from the ocean floor trailing centuries of sediment, navigated with impossible precision through debris fields and concordat blockades. Through the ship's sensors, Alina witnessed the chaos engulfing the colony: martial law declarations, firefights between factions, and the emergence of other structures from beneath the surface. The separation from Marcus haunted her. During their desperate flight through the ancient tunnels, Concordat forces had cut them off. The last she'd seen of him was his defiant stand as he triggered a tunnel collapse, buying her time to reach the subterranean dock where the dreadnought waited. "He's still alive," Alina muttered to herself, monitoring the ship's long-range sensors. Zelteric wouldn't kill a valuable asset. Assessment probability: 78.6%. Sentinel's voice echoed through the command center. "Concordat intelligence officer, Zelteric demonstrates pattern deviation from standard protocols. Historical analysis suggests ideological conflict." The dreadnought, Sentinel had designated it Mnemosyne's Herald, decelerated as it approached a seemingly empty region of the Kuiper asteroid belt. Sensor screens showed nothing remarkable, yet the ship proceeded with certainty toward specific coordinates. "What is this place?" Alina asked, watching as the navigation system engaged complex gravitational calculations. "Primary Restoration Facility Gamma," Sentinel replied. "One of 8 distributed manufacturing complexes designed to initiate fleet reconstruction. Current facility status unknown after extended dormancy." The emptiness ahead suddenly shimmered, revealing a massive structure integrated into a cluster of asteroids. The camouflage technology deactivated upon their approach, exposing a facility that dwarfed even the largest human space stations. As they docked, Alina felt the ship initiating connections with dormant systems throughout the structure. "Genetic authentication required for full activation," Sentinel announced. "Your partial interface is insufficient for complete restoration protocols." Alina stepped onto the facility's main hangar, her footsteps echoing in spaces designed for thousands. Emergency lighting activated along her path, revealing construction bays large enough to house capital ships. Most stood empty, but in one distant chamber, robotic systems had already begun assembling components around a skeletal frame. "You've started building without full activation?" Alina asked. "Contingency protocols exist for partial awakening scenarios," Sentinel explained. "However, crew reconstruction requires complete authentication." Alina rounded a corner and froze. Before her stood hundreds of metallic pods arranged in precise rows, each bearing the faint outline of a human form within. "These are people. Genetic templates preserved with accompanying neural imprints," Sentinel corrected. "The essence of the command crew, stored until needed." One pod at the center pulsed with activity, its surface becoming transparent to reveal a man floating in suspension fluid. His features solidified as Alina watched, transforming from generic to specific: dark skin, angular features, and a network of silver circuitry visible beneath his skin. "Commander Darius Kane, Strategic Operations," Sentinel identified. "Primary custodian of the Mnemosyne Initiative." The pod hissed open, fluid draining as the man's eyes snapped open, eyes with pupils shaped like starbursts. "Situation report," he demanded, voice hoarse but commanding as he stepped from the pod, seemingly unbothered by his nakedness or the circumstances of his awakening. Before Alina could respond, the facility's alarms blared. On a nearby console, Signals appeared showing multiple ships dropping out of FTL at the edge of the asteroid field. Concordat pursuit craft, Elena identified. How did they find us so quickly? Kane studied the tactical display. Movements precise despite having been non-existent moments before. Not pursuit. These are assassin-class vessels. They weren't following you. They were already deployed, watching this location. His starburst eyes narrowed as he studied Elena. Which means the Concordat has known about these facilities all along. He grabbed a uniform from a nearby storage unit, the material conforming instantly to his body. They'd been waiting for someone to lead them straight to the awakening fleet. Elena felt her neural implant pulse as Sentinel transferred tactical data. Through the facility sensors, she detected something else, a massive energy signature activating several astronomical units away. Another facility is powering up, she realized. Someone else has found a database fragment. Kane's expression hardened. Then the race has already begun. Marcus Chen couldn't feel his fingers anymore. The Concordat's interrogation chamber maintained a precise temperature that didn't quite cause tissue damage, but ensured constant discomfort. The neural suppressor clamped to his neck prevented him from sleeping more than 20 minutes at a stretch. Across the featureless table, Zelteric studied him with compound eyes that reflected Marcus's haggard face in fractured repetition. The Concordat officer's chitinous exoskeletal plates shifted in what Marcus had learned was an expression of frustration. The genetic resonance patterns cannot be coincidental, Zelteric said, mandibles clicking. You carry command strain markers identical to historical records, yet you insist you have no knowledge of Operation Mnemosyne. For the 100th time, Marcus rasped, until 5 days ago, I was just a linguist with controversial theories. He leaned forward despite the pain. But I've answered your questions. Now answer mine. Why does the Concordat High Command want the database destroyed rather than studied? What are you afraid of? Zelteric went motionless, the species equivalent of a sharp inhale. After a long pause, he activated a privacy field around the interrogation room, blocking all surveillance. What I tell you violates multiple security protocols, Zelteric said, mandibles tight against his face. The founders of the Concordat, my own species included, are not what our histories claim. He extended a limb, activating a holographic display showing DNA sequences side by side. One human, one from his own species. The similarities were unmistakable. Impossible, Marcus whispered. The Erextol were not separate evolutionary products, Zelteric continued. We were humans, modified to survive on high radiation worlds during the expansion era. When the Civil War erupted, our ancestors sided against the Mnemosyne Protocol. We believed forgetting was cowardly. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. You're offshoots of humanity. As are the Voth, the Direxi, and 4 other Concordat founding species. Different adaptations for different environments, but the same origin. Zelteric's compound eyes shifted hue to a deep amber. Our sacred texts speak of the sundering, when we rejected our human identity and established separated evolutionary paths. For 150 millennia, we've maintained the quarantine of Earth and limited human expansion. Why? Marcus demanded. Because the texts warn of the destroyer's return, how the fractured children of humanity would one day reclaim technologies that nearly ended all life in the galaxy. Zelteric leaned closer. For generations, we've believed humans were the destroyers. But I've analyzed Sentinel's code fragments from your interrogation data. The warning isn't about humans. It's about what the humans were fighting. A proximity alarm suddenly blared. Zelteric deactivated the privacy field moments before the door slid open, admitting a towering Voth official whose reptilian features twisted in what could only be described as disgust. The High Council has reached its decision, the Voth announced. The human is to be terminated immediately. The infection spreads. Infection? Marcus questioned. Dreams, Zelteric explained quietly. Across human space, people report dreams of flying impossible ships, commanding technologies beyond comprehension. The database's activation has triggered dormant genetic memory. The Council fears contamination through continued contact. The Voth placed a ceremonial execution blade on the table. You will perform the duty, intelligence officer. Prove your loyalty to the Concordat. After the Voth departed, Zell-Terik stood motionless for several heartbeats. Then, with sudden decision, he removed Marcus's restraints and disabled the neural suppressor. My ancestors chose the wrong side once before, he said, retrieving a weapon from a concealed compartment. The texts have been misinterpreted. If humans are reawakening the fleet, something worse must be coming, something that required such desperate measures in the first place. Marcus rubbed his wrists, eyeing the blade and then the door. Why help me? Because, Zell-Terik said as he input override codes to the security system, in the oldest versions of our sacred texts, humans weren't called destroyers. They were called guardians. Earth's moon hung in the viewport, deceptively serene against the backdrop of escalating galactic chaos. Alina, Kane, and the small crew they'd assembled from the Gamma facility approached in a Corvette-class vessel, its ancient stealth systems rendering them invisible to Earth's defensive grid. There's something poetic about hiding our greatest secret in plain sight, Kane observed, his starburst eyes fixed on the lunar surface. Humanity has gazed at its keeper every night for thousands of generations. Elena studied the tactical display where reports flooded in from across human space. Admiral Volkov's reactivated fleet had engaged Concordat forces in 3 systems. Colonies reported mysterious activations beneath their surfaces, and most concerning, long-range sensors detected expanding zones of nothingness at the galaxy's edge, where stars simply cease to appear. The lunar database. You're certain it contains the Nexus? Elena asked. Kane nodded. The Mimosine protocol had 3 components: the scattered fleet, the distributed databases, and the Nexus itself, designed to coordinate everything through a singular consciousness. His expression darkened. It was never meant to be activated under these conditions. The Civil War erupted precisely because of disagreements over its use. Their corvette settled into a crater near the lunar South Pole, landing beside what appeared to be a standard research outpost. Only the ship's advanced sensors revealed the massive structure extending 20 kilometers beneath the surface. Earth's governments know, Elena realized. They've built around it. They know something is here, Kane corrected. But without proper access protocols, they've barely scratched the surface. As they donned exosuits, Elena's neural implant pulsed with an incoming transmission. Marcus's face appeared in her visual field, his expression urgent. Elena, we don't have much time. Zell-Terik and I have discovered something critical about the Concordat's origins. They're modified humans from the Civil War era. But more importantly, we've accessed records about what ended the ancient empire. His image flickered. It wasn't just a civil war. They were fighting something called the Void Currents, some kind of cosmic force that doesn't just destroy civilizations, it erases them from history itself. Elena exchanged alarmed glances with Kane as Marcus continued. The technology wasn't hidden to prevent humans from reclaiming power. It was sealed away because using it attracts the Void's attention, and Volkov's mass activations are lighting up the galaxy like a beacon. The transmission cut off as they exited the corvette. The lunar surface looked undisturbed, but Kane walked with certainty toward a specific crater wall. He placed his hand against the regolith, which rippled like liquid before revealing a doorway marked with familiar symbols. Emergency access protocol, he explained. Only accessible to command strain genetics. The facility beyond defied comprehension. A vast chamber hewn from the lunar bedrock, filled with technology that made the most advanced human innovations seem primitive. At its center stood a chair-like structure surrounded by swirling interfaces, cables extending into the moon's core. The Nexus, Elena whispered. The most powerful information processing system ever created, Kane confirmed. Designed to extend a single consciousness across multiple vessels simultaneously, coordinating the entire fleet as if it were one organism. As they approached, the systems activated, responding to both their presences. Displays illuminated, showing the advancing void currents consuming distant star systems, and Volkov's fleet engaging Concordat forces near Jupiter. "We're out of time," Kane said grimly. Alina's eyes opened, now glowing with the same starburst pattern as Kane's. "The same thing you did," she replied, her voice momentarily coherent. "Connected to something greater than myself. But you only found a fragment. I've accessed the whole." Volkov's hand moved to her sidearm, but she hesitated as Alina projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with vast sections at the edges simply missing. Star systems that should exist but didn't, replaced by expanding zones of absolute emptiness. "This is happening now," Alina said. "Not ancient history. The void currents have already consumed 17 systems in the past month. They're accelerating toward populated space." Volkov's composure cracked. "Then we strike first. My fleet would be erased before they could engage," Kane interrupted. "Conventional weapons are meaningless against something that operates on fundamental laws of reality." Alina's body suddenly convulsed again, her consciousness fluctuating across the network. "There's only one vessel designed to face the void directly," she managed before her voice split into overlapping echoes. "The Mnemoscene awaits, but reaching it requires cooperation. Human, Concordat, all fragments of the same whole." As if to emphasize her point, the facility's sensors detected void influence appearing within the solar system itself, a small region near Neptune where stars simply vanished from sensors, as if that portion of reality had been excised from existence. It was no longer a distant threat. The void had arrived. The Mnemoscene existed in a place that defied conventional understanding of spacetime, a pocket dimension maintained by technologies so advanced they blurred the line between science and metaphysics. The journey there had cost them 3 ships and 14 lives as they navigated the precise sequence of wormhole jumps Alina had extracted from the lunar database. Now, as they approached the massive structure hidden between realities, even Xelteric's alien physiology registered awe. "Ancestors preserve us," he whispered, compound eyes reflecting the impossible vessel that filled their viewports. The Mnemoscene dwarfed any ship in known space, a sprawling construct of interconnected rings and spheres that seemed to phase between states of matter. Parts of it appeared solid, others translucent, while certain sections seemed to exist in multiple positions simultaneously. The central core glowed with energy that sensors couldn't categorize. Alina observed through 1,000 perspectives at once. Her physical body remained on their transport vessel, stabilized by Kane's interventions that had prevented her complete dissolution into the network. But her consciousness flowed through systems awakening throughout the Mnemoscene as their approach triggered activation protocols. "It recognizes us," she said, her voice still carrying echoes of her distributed awareness. "All of us, human and modified human alike." It was waiting for both branches to return together. Their small fleet, a desperate alliance of Alina's group, Volkov's loyalists, and Xelteric's Concordat separatists, docked within a massive hangar that reconfigured itself to accommodate their vessels. As they disembarked, the ship's internal systems guided them deeper into its structure, toward the central core. "The ship is larger inside than its external dimensions suggest," Marcus observed, studying readings on his tablet. "Some kind of spatial compression technology." "That's not all it contains," Kane added grimly. "I'm detecting genetic preservation chambers throughout the vessel, thousands of them. This isn't just a warship, it's an ark." They entered a vast circular chamber where time itself felt different. Sounds lingered, movements left traces in the air. At the center stood a single stasis pod, distinct from all others they had encountered. Unlike the uniform pods that had restored Kane, this one bore intricate circuitry across its surface that pulsed with coherent patterns. Alina approached it, drawn by information flowing through her expanded consciousness. "The architect," she whispered. the one who designed it all. The fleet, the regression protocol, the distributed databases. The pod's surface became transparent, revealing a figure within, neither clearly male nor female, their skin interwoven with the same circuitry that decorated the pod. As they watched, the figure's eyes opened, entirely black, with galaxies seemingly swirling within them. The pod hissed open, atmosphere equalizing as the architect stepped forth, movements fluid despite 150,000 years of suspended animation. They studied each member of the group in turn, expression shifting from curiosity to profound dismay. "The fail-safes have activated," they said, voice resonating with harmonic undertones. Then the calculations were correct. The void has returned. Alina's distributed consciousness surged forward, creating a momentary visual distortion around her physical form. What are the void currents? What were we fighting? The architect's galaxy eyes fixed on her. Not what. Who? They gestured, and the chamber transformed into a three-dimensional recreation of the galaxy, with vast sections missing at the edges. The void currents are not a natural phenomenon. They are weapons, deployed by something that exists outside conventional reality. Something that harvests galaxies. Volkov stepped forward, military bearing unchanged despite everything she'd witnessed. Then we fight. The fleet cannot win through conventional engagement, the architect interrupted. The ancient fleet was equipped with recursion engines, technology capable of locally rewriting physical laws. It was our only effective defense, and even then, we merely postponed the inevitable. The simulation changed, showing how the expanding zones of nothingness accelerated as more recursion engines activated. The more we fought, the faster it consumed. We realized the terrible truth too late. Our resistance was actually accelerating the harvest. That's why we chose regression over continuation. By abandoning our technology and fragmenting our species, we deprived it of the energy signature it was tracking. Alina's consciousness flickered as she processed this revelation through thousands of distributed nodes simultaneously. But now we've reactivated everything. We've created the exact pattern that attracted it in the first place. The architect nodded solemnly. And in doing so, you've triggered the final protocol. Remembrance. The chamber shifted again, revealing what appeared to be a control system unlike anything they'd seen before. At its center hovered a crystalline structure identical to the dodecahedron that had started everything. One last option, the architect explained, developed after the decision to regress, a way to communicate directly with what lies beyond the void. As if in response, the ship trembled as reality itself seemed to warp around them. Through the Mnemoscene sensors, Alina witnessed space-time folding unnaturally near Jupiter, a zone of absolute nothing expanding outward, consuming everything in its path. The void had found them. Time fluctuated unpredictably as the void expanded through the Jupiter system. On the Mnemoscene's command deck, holographic displays showed reality itself fragmenting, space tearing open like fabric, exposing nothing behind it. Not darkness or emptiness, but absolute non-existence. The recursion engines are our only option, Volkov insisted, her flagship already deploying in defensive formation. We hit it with everything we have. That's exactly what it wants, the architect countered, galaxy eyes tracking invisible patterns. Every recursion engine activation creates energy signatures it can trace across dimensional boundaries. It feeds on our attempts to rewrite physical laws. Alina's fragmented consciousness operated across multiple systems simultaneously, coordinating the evacuation of the Jupiter colonies while directing the ancient fleet into a containment pattern. Through 1,000 perspectives, she witnessed the same horror. Wherever the void touched, it didn't just destroy, it retroactively erased. Sensor logs showed colonies that had never existed in places where millions had lived moments before. If fighting accelerates it and running only delays it, what option remains? Gel Tarek asked, his exoskeletal plates darkening with stress patterns. The architect approached the crystalline structure at the center of the command deck, the original dodecahedron that had started everything. Communication, understanding. With something that consumes galaxies, Marcus questioned incredulously. What if it's not consumption but transformation? The architect's fingers danced across the artifact's facets, activating sequences dormant for millennia. Our ancestors discovered something after implementing the regression protocol, evidence that the void isn't random destruction. It follows patterns consistent with information processing on a cosmic scale. The dodecahedron pulsed, projecting a multidimensional representation of the galaxy's history, cycles of civilizations rising and falling, each ending with void incursions that reset development patterns. It's happened before, Elena realized, her distributed consciousness allowing her to process the patterns at unprecedented speed. Many times. The cycle. It's not random. The architect nodded. The Mnemoscene was our final creation. Not a weapon but a transmitter. A way to reach whatever exists beyond the void and understand its purpose. And if that purpose is simply to end us, Volkov challenged, then we faced the same outcome we would by fighting, Kane interjected, understanding dawning. But if there's purpose beyond destruction. The ship shuddered as space-time distortions intensified. Through sensor feeds, they watched Volkov's fleet engage the expanding void edge with recursion engines, futilely trying to rewrite local physics to repel the incursion. Each activation briefly pushed back the nothingness, but ultimately accelerated its advance. We need a direct connection, the architect said, turning to Elena. Your distributed consciousness spans the network necessary to establish contact. You must carry our message. What message? Elena asked, her physical body trembling as her mind processed implications across thousands of parallel thought structures. That we understand now. That we're ready to evolve beyond the cycle. The architect's galaxy eyes met hers. The recursion technology was never meant to be a weapon. It was a developmental milestone. Proof we could manipulate reality itself. Understanding crystallized across Elena's fragmented awareness. It's a test, not destruction. Selection. The architect nodded, activating the final protocols within the dodecahedron. The remembrance isn't about preserving our past, it's about remembering our purpose in a larger design. As the void boundary approached the Mnemoscene, Elena made her decision. Instead of retreating or attacking, she directed the entire fleet to form a lattice pattern around the expanding nothingness, not containing it, but creating a framework of interconnected recursion fields. Not fighting against, she directed, resonating with. Through her expanded consciousness, Elena reached into the void itself, her awareness extending beyond conventional reality. What she found there defied complete comprehension. Vast intelligences operating on principles so alien they appeared as nothing to human perception. Not destroyers but transformers, architects of cosmic evolution who tested species through cycles of advancement and regression. The lattice formation completed as the recursion engines activated simultaneously, not rewriting physics to repel the void but modulating to match its frequency. The dodecahedron at the center of the Mnemoscene pulsed in perfect synchronization, transmitting not opposition but recognition, not defiance but acknowledgement. For a heartbeat that stretched into infinity, nothing happened. Then, throughout the system, the advancing nothingness paused. The boundary between existence and non-existence stabilized, then began to shimmer with new patterns, information flowing both ways across a barrier previously impenetrable. On the command deck, the architect watched with an expression of vindication and wonder. They're responding. After all this time. Through the lattice network, Elena perceived the first coherent communication from beyond. Not in words or images, but in fundamental transformations of reality itself. The message, translated through her expanded consciousness, was both simple and profound. The cycle ends. Integration begins. Across human space and beyond, the stars flickered with new patterns of light as reality reconfigured around a paradigm previously unimaginable. Not existence versus obliteration, but convergent evolution between fundamentally different forms of being. What had appeared as destruction was revealed as transformation, preparation for something greater than either humanity or the void could achieve separately. As the integration wave spread outward from the Jupiter system, Alina felt her fragmented consciousness beginning to reintegrate, not diminished but transformed, expanded to perceive connections previously invisible. The boundaries between past and present, between species and civilizations, between what was remembered and what was forgotten, all became permeable in ways that allowed for true cooperation without loss of identity. Standing on the Mnemosyne's observation deck, Alina watched distant stars flicker with new patterns of light, the signature of other galaxies beginning their own integrations. Beside her stood Marcus, Cain, Zelteric, Volkov, and the Architect, representatives of a fractured legacy, now reunited through understanding rather than conflict. "What happens now?" Marcus asked softly. Alina smiled as her perception expanded to glimpse the countless potential futures unfolding before them. "Now we remember, and then we create."